Welcome to Obstacle Running Adventures.
This being around for 6 years and you kind of growing up with it, what was it like to see how it's kind of gotten bigger in terms of having a live stream of it, increase in prize money, I believe, and just like more athletes coming? Like, what was it like to see how big it's gotten?
It was really neat because this is an event that I've enjoyed every one of the 6 years that I've done it. And every year something changes slightly, something improves a little bit. And you just see them like kind of developing the event as a whole and what they're trying to do with it. It was really neat. And I thought about it a lot this weekend. I was like, because I lived there for 4 years and now I've been in Colorado for a year and coming up on a year and a half. But it was, they call it grit games and it's very gritty. Like the workouts themselves are tough. And then you have the added element of the heat, the humidity, um, and just like the kind of things that you wouldn't necessarily test in a race. But if you were to do well at these, you would do well in a race. So it's kind of doing workouts there for 4 years and running in that heat. It honestly kind of built me into the athlete that I am now. I definitely like, I'm not the fastest, I'm not the strongest, but I'm pretty gritty and I will stick it out. And I think a lot of it is because of doing workouts that kind of the grit games has been built around, or, it's kind of the foundation of grit games. And then just that heat element and where it's not fun for anybody. But if you can train through something like that, if you can, perform in those kind of conditions, then you can kind of perform anywhere. And that it was really neat to kind of see these tough workouts, these added elements, just the general, like, takes a lot of like heart and grit to get through them. And that's kind of what's built me into the athlete that now I travel all over and win stuff. But for 4 years, I worked out and ran in that heat and with, doing workouts similar to those. And it really like, created me as an athlete in a lot of ways. So.
Yeah, I know that you were a big part in bringing like the grit games to my awareness, but now I feel like it's on everybody's radar, which is pretty great to see. When it did come to moving to Colorado, obviously you have the benefit of elevation, but you lose um, the practice or the dealing with humidity. So I know you travel a lot and you do races all over the country and stuff still, but like, does the humidity get to you more, or do you think is it like really, I don't know.
So last weekend, the weekend prior, I was in Hawaii and did an ultra there. And my thought was, because, living there for 4 years, I realized I was like, if you're going to survive this heat, you have to love it. If you resent it the entire time, you're not going to, I mean, you'll survive, but you're not going to be like progressing or growing if you just resent the heat the whole time. So I got to a point where I was like, I love the heat. I can't wait to get out in the heat. Running in the middle of the day was my favorite. Like you just really get acclimated to it. So I went and did this ultra in Hawaii last weekend and I thought like, well, I love the heat. I'm acclimated to it. I'll be fine. And it was really tough. It really like, I think there were several factors, but the heat was definitely one where I was like, I am not as heat acclimated as I think I once was. So it kind of put a little bit of, I was a little worried about how the great games would go. But I also figured I was like, well, this is a great heat training weekend. So I was like, I'll do better at the great games. But what's crazy about the Great Games, that area of South Texas, it is truly has to be one of the hottest places, hottest and most humid places you've ever been. And it's just on a different level. And it turns out like I did fine in that heat and humidity. It was kind of the in between that I had a hard time with, where I was like, oh, I'm fine. But when you go in and it's like, it's 85, 90 degrees in the morning before the sun even comes out. It is 90% humidity all the time. Um, and you just kind of get used to that. Like whatever you wear, it will be soaking in sweat within, 15 to 20 minutes of being outside. And it's just kind of the way it is. And so I really was able to embrace that and really enjoy it. And it did not affect me the way I thought it could have after the previous weekend. So, yeah, I've lost the training and like the total adaptation to it, but I still like really love and enjoy it. So I think that kind of carries over. I kind of tend to run cold. And so I appreciate the heat in general and the sun. And I was telling somebody this weekend, like the heat down there, it warms, like I feel like it warms your bone marrow. Like it warms you all the way to the core of everything. And it feels good to me. I love it. So yeah, turns out I still like it. So.
That sounds like absolute hell for me. I'm the exact opposite. I run hot. So like put me in somewhere super, super cold. Like that's where I'll excel. But yeah, I do not do well in the heat there. But I had heard that was like that specific part in Texas is supposed to be like super, super hot too. And it seemed, from what I've seen for the rest of the athletes, definitely took a toll on them too. So I only had the chance to watch the live stream for about an hour, and I believe it was the first event. So can you describe like what the first event was, and then we can kind of get into how that first event went for you?
Yeah. It's a 20-minute AMRAP. You start with a 400-meter buy-in. So you go and run a 400-meter. And then after that, it's heavy carries. They have a bucket carry, a sandbag carry, and a